can't just look at that overall. You've got to get the big guys better than the small guys. How do you decide whether they're right or not? What things do you look at to say it is one market or it's two different markets?
You know, that big, practically year-long investigation that they tend to do, that's going to happen here, right? Because what you really need to do is ask, are the arguments these companies making just lawyer arguments crafted to defend this deal and get it through? Or is it truly the way they envision their business? Is it's really their strategy as reflected in their normal course documents created to run the business and not created to defend a merger? So what they do is they start collecting documents, and they want to see who these companies view as their competitors, who they're going after, and who they price compete with. And if in fact they see that Schwab is really targeting entities other than TD Ameritrade, and TD Ameritrade really views some other set as its primary competitors, then maybe that argument could have some traction.
And how long does something like this typically take, the review?
Well, I think it's going to take longer than what the parties think here. I mean, they're talking about 6 to 8 months. And when you have a deal that gets investigated and may need a remedy, we're really looking at average about 9 months from announcement to when they can get clearance. And so I think this will get investigated, and I think it very well might need a remedy. And in that case, I think 8 months is really optimistic. It's possible they could do it, but I would expect it to stretch longer than that.
Okay, 12 months from now, we have an election.
Right.
We're seeing an awful lot of mergers announced just today. I mean, really big mergers here. Are people taking that into account, thinking, you know what, I want to protect myself. If I want to do a deal, I better get it going so that I can get it done in that 6, 8, 9, 10 months before there might be a new administration?
I think you're exactly right about that. And we've seen this before during election periods when there could be a change in administration. A lot of mergers trying to sneak in under the finish line there. It very well may be. You know, it's not that this Department of Justice has necessarily been just letting mergers slide through one after another. They've actually been tougher, I think, than a lot of analysts anticipated they'd be. But the idea of, let's say, Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders or many of the other Democratic contenders as president, I think would make deal more challenging to get through.
Interesting. You make a very interesting point, because when President Trump was elected, it was generally thought that would be pro-business in the sense that it would be a lot easier to get mergers through. That's not been the experience compared to the Obama administration thus far?
It's been unusual, David, because we've seen mergers get through that nobody would expect to get through, such as Sprint T-Mobile. But then you see mergers most antitrust analysts would say this merger is fine, this merger will get through, especially vertical deals such as AT&T Time Warner, and the Department of Justice went to court to try to block the deal. So it's been odd, but I think overall, if you look at the big picture, this Department of Justice has been tougher than I expected it to be.
It's hard without being in the room to know what is going on in the thinking of the antitrust authorities. But when you talk about a T-Mobile Sprint, how much of that could be informed by President Trump's deep commitment to 5G? Because the argument for that merger was we need the capital to go into 5G.
It very well could be in there. Could be part of the equation in deciding to push that deal through. To be honest, it really isn't supposed to be, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't part of the consideration. And, you know, it can be part of the consideration in that Department of Justice is meant to ask, how is this deal pro-competitive? How is it good? And what good can it do for consumers? And they can look at the 5G and say, hey, this is something that's going to benefit consumers, and push it through on that basis.
It's great to have Jen Rhee with us here from Bloomberg Intelligence. President Trump was elected to office on a strong turnout of white voters, more than half of whom voted for him. Can he count on the same sort of support in 2020? We talked with Francis Wilkinson of Bloomberg Opinion. That's next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio.
Directors of companies are responsible to boards.
Let's begin with the IPO that may not be for a long, long time.
Politicians are mindful of voters.
Are those gains all going to the elite?
Scholars pay attention to data.
Does it spread beyond manufacturing?
And nearly everyone at the top of these professions listens to Bloomberg Surveillance.
Everybody listens when I'm on your show.
Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow. Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Welcome back to the Dog Show. Up next, we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right, a group known especially for their couch-snuggling, ball-chasing, face-licking, and, of course, companionship. Now, let's see him in action.
Look how he makes eye contact with his person.
That's actually known as the treat stare.
How intuitive. And now he appears to be excitedly turning in circles.
The happy dance so common with this group.
But really, the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Satchmo is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
If you love them enough to listen to them practice the same song on tuba, please be done. Over and over and over and over and over. Then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Sounds good, honey.
Check today at NHTSA.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis.
At Lidl, we're big on all those Christmas parties. The season to be jolly. Try our Party Time Indian snack selection for only $2.99. And our Party Time mac and cheese bites for just $1.19. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes an eye.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like 4 reels. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
This year, make Christmas shopping a pleasure. Come to Bicester Village with over 160 beautiful boutiques set in a fairy tale Cotswolds Christmas garden, glittering by day and magically illuminated by night. After a day's hard work finding the perfect gifts, reward yourself with festive menus and cocktails at Farm Shop Restaurant and Cafe by Soho House & Co. or a delicious dinner at Cafe Wolseley. Bicester Village, the perfect place for Christmas shopping.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Tottenham and Edmonton from 10 p.m. on Friday the 22nd of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 25th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds, or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught, it is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
Along the goal line, Martin scores! He takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Gonna move, hit a shot, they score!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Another day of records for the U.S. stock market on optimism over China and a fresh wave of merger and acquisition activity. S&P and NASDAQ both climbing to records after China said it will tighten intellectual property rules, a move aimed at boosting the chances of a trade deal between the world's two largest economies. S&P up 19 at 3129, a gain of 0.6%. The Dow up 144 points, up 0.5. NASDAQ up 101 points, up by 1.2%. 10-years up 3/32 yield, 1.76%. Gold down 0.4%, 14.56 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.2%, 57.65 a barrel. Recapping, S&P up 19, up 0.6%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
From the Interactive Broker Studio, it's time now for Bloomberg Opinion, and we welcome today columnist Francis Wilkinson. So, Frank, thank you so much for joining us. You're writing about the election, and you're writing about it in a way I love, because it's not the flyover, what does the country think? It's sort of area by area, and specifically county by county. You talk about Dane County, Wisconsin. Why do you think that's informative?
Well, Dane is an odd place, and it may be a singular place. It's the county in Wisconsin that has Madison, which is, of course, a notoriously liberal city. But its demographics in terms of race are very similar to the state as a whole. It's about 80% non-Hispanic white, which is pretty much what the state of Wisconsin is. And, of course, in 2016... Wisconsin was won by Trump by about 23,000 votes, whereas Dane voted for Clinton by 3-1.
And so one of the things you focus on the question of race and the fact that white voters turned out in large numbers in 2016, and President Trump got a majority of them. But as I read the piece, it's actually not entirely about race. It's also about density.
Well, it's about a number of things. If you look at Dane, it has a couple of characteristics that stand out. One, education. University of Wisconsin at Madison is there, the dominant school in the state. It has about 50% of Dane County residents have a bachelor's degree, so it's a highly educated area. It also has high income. It's about $67,000 household median income, and it has a very liberal tradition that goes along with that. But yes, if you look at Democratic politics and Republican politics in the United States, what you find is that one party is associated with low-density areas, and that's, the Republicans, with rural and small-town America, and one is highly associated with dense populations, cities in close suburbs, and that's the Democrats. And this plays out in Wisconsin as well. Milwaukee and Madison are highly Democratic. The rural parts of Wisconsin tend to be, like the rest of the United States, much more Republican.
Well, what does this tell us, if anything, about what's likely to happen next year? Because, as you suggested, President Trump won, albeit narrowly, in swing states like Wisconsin, like Michigan, like Pennsylvania. Has the nature of the voting group changed since then?
I don't think it has. What we've seen is enormous stasis with this presidency, where his approval rating really has been stuck in a very narrow range, no matter what he does. So I don't think it's going to be that kind of change. I think what we're going to see is whether the sort of demographics of Michigan and Pennsylvania, for instance, which are the other key states in that trio that you mentioned, which are more black, less white, and where black turnout was a fall off in 2016. If Democrats can improve their prospects among black voters in both of those states, and they're looking pretty good for Democrats at the moment, then it will come down to Wisconsin as a swing state if you hold all other things equal. And Wisconsin is a highly white state, so then you're talking about who turns out, which is why a place like Dane becomes more interesting to look at, just because it is kind of an outlier, even with its education levels and its income levels. It's an oddly Democratic area for a place that is so white.
What does this tell us about the various Democrats who are running for president right now? And I'll give you a couple of examples. It's generally thought that former Vice President Joe Biden does relatively well with African Americans. It's generally thought that Pete Buttigieg, the mayor, has more trouble with African Americans. So does it indicate which candidates are likely to do better in those three critical swing states?
Well, I'm not really one who's willing to say what things are going to look like in a few months. It's November. We haven't had Iowa caucus yet. We haven't had New Hampshire primary, and we certainly have not had the South Carolina race. So which is one which will be dominated by black voters in the Democratic primary. You know, right now you are absolutely correct that Biden is very strong with black voters. Buttigieg is very weak, as are most of the other candidates for that matter. But we are in the early phases here. Barack Obama was not strong with black voters early on either. Hillary Clinton was in 2008. So things change once the voting starts.
We had remarkably high turnout in the midterm elections this time. The voting populace seemed to be very motivated to come out and vote. Could a highly motivated voting class change the results in 2020?
I think there's going to be a highly motivated voters on both sides, and that's why it's very difficult to say. You know, traditionally one says, well, it's going to be a high turnout vote that benefits Democrats. I don't think that's necessarily true this time. I think Donald Trump is very consciously attempting to tap into traditionally non-voting parts of the white population, and specifically his base, which is non-college educated white men, are not a high voting population. If he can jack up that support, he can compete in a higher turnout election.
Okay, many thanks to Bloomberg Opinion's Frank Wilkinson. A great piece on the Bloomberg today. You can read more on this and other stories from Bloomberg Opinion at Bloomberg.com/opinion and on the terminal by typing in OPIN-GO. The Supreme Court lets stand a lower court ruling that arms manufacturers can be sued in certain circumstances for the loss suffered in mass shootings. And that comes despite the fact there's a federal statute that purportedly gives them immunity. Why is that? We talk with law professor Timothy Litton of Georgia State University about the significance, potentially, of the Supreme Court denying cert in this potentially very important case. That's coming up on Balance of Power, and we are on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Investors are finding more than one reason to consider some Wall Street records. All three averages are up 0.5 to 1 2/10%. And right now, the NASDAQ and S&P are trading in record territory. The Dow is near it, up 135 points. The NASDAQ adding 100 to the S&P 20. Word that China will toughen penalties against those who break intellectual property rules lifted stocks. And it may be just another merger Monday, but investors like that song. Charles Schwab announced it will buy TD Ameritrade and reshape the retail brokerage business. The parent company of Louis Vuitton is expected to take Tiffany & Company more exclusive and expensive, and analysts like the price that Viagogo is willing to pay eBay for its StubHub ticket-selling business, $4 billion cash. Black Friday sales have already started in stores and on car lots, but don't discount that holiday shopping period. Bloomberg Intelligence says retailers actually do experience their greatest lift during Thanksgiving week, and after that, things get even better. I'm Joan Doniger, Bloomberg Radio.
I'm a 40-year-old man that walked in there to get his high school diploma. It was very hard for me, but Miss Araceli, she gave me direction.
At age 47, Marco finished his high school diploma.
50% of getting your high school diploma is walking through those doors. The other 50% is doing the work.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers. In-depth analysis.
I love Black Friday. Busy shops, crazy people, average deals. It's so much fun.
Said no one ever. So be savvy and do Black Friday the easy way with Smarty. Grab a huge 100 gig data SIM for just £17 a month on the Mega Plan. And with no credit checks, speed restrictions or contracts tying you down, you can kick back with the best Black Friday deal around. Now that's Smarty. Search Smarty Mobile to find out more, but hurry, as this deal won't be around for long. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
At Lidl, we're big on those little reasons to be jolly. Like our delicious Favorina all butter mini Stollen bites for just $1.99. and 6 deluxe mince pies for just $1.35. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always little on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes NI.
If your ideas challenge the status quo, if you have advised people you had no right advising, if you built companies and lost companies and built them again, if you've been called a pillock, a dreamer, an innovator and a genius, if you thrive in the 11th hour, if you have blown it and completely nailed it in the same day, prepare for your next departure.
Do business right. Travel Virgin Atlantic.
Join us for the perfume shop's biggest Black Friday ever, with huge savings like Diesel Only the Brave EDT 75ml, only £24.99, save £25.50. Plus buy 2 and get 20% off the second item. Offer ends 1st of December, savings off RRP while stocks last, exclusions apply. For T's and C's, visit us in-store or online at theperfumeshop.com.
If there's one thing you look forward to most on Thanksgiving, besides stuffing yourself with bottomless mashed potatoes and gravy, oh yeah, it's football. And wherever you are at game time, you can catch the NFL's epic Turkey Day triple feature on TuneIn. This Thursday, starting at 12:30 Eastern. Don't miss the back-to-back-to-back lineup of Bears v. Lions, Bills v. Cowboys, and Saints v. Falcons. Whether you're driving to the in-laws or carving the bird, search NFL on TuneIn to hear the holiday action. Happy Thanksgiving.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slammed it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage.
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
Resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 podcasts, season 6. Listen and favorite 30 for 30 podcasts on TuneIn.
Cutting for the net, scores! Along the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Balance of Power with David Weston.
Coming up on Balance of Power, the Supreme Court has declined the opportunity to intervene in a suit against the manufacturer of the gun used in the Sandy Hook massacre. We're joined by my colleague June Grasso to talk about the ramifications. But first, let's get a market check with Charlie Pellet.
And I thank you very much, David Weston. We have got the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing. We're looking at records on this back-to-work Monday, holiday-shortened trading week. This update brought to you by the law offices of Deutsche Atkins PC, representing highly compensated executives with employment claims and severance issues. Call now for a free phone consultation. 800-498-3888. 800-498-0991. 800-498-0991. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ are all pushing higher. S&P 500 index up now, trading at a record up 19 of 31.29. That's a gain of 0.6%. Stocks are advancing on optimism over China trade relations, along with a fresh wave of merger and acquisition activity. The Dow up 140, 28.15. That is a gain of 0.5%. And NASDAQ up 101, now higher by 1.2%. Another U.S. economic indicator is in the red. And with that story, here's Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
The Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago reports its National Economic Index put in the weakest performance in 7 months in October. The Chicago Fed's index tracks 85 economic data points, and only 27 were positive. That corresponds with other data, including the forward-looking index of leading economic indicators, which dropped for a third month in October. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
Tesla shares up now by 1.4%. CEO Elon Musk has revived the practice of reporting reservation counts, telling his Twitter followers that orders for the car maker's Cybertruck have climbed to 200,000 despite Friday's rocky reveal. The 10-year up 3/32 yield, 1.75%. Gold down 0.3, 14.57 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude up 0.1%, 57.85 a barrel. Recapping U.S. stocks, they're at a record. S&P up 19, up 0.6%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's the Bloomberg Business Flash, and Balance of Power continues, the Monday edition. Once again, here he is, David Weston.
Thank you so much to you, Charlie Pellet. Relatives of those killed in the Sandy Hook mass shooting sued Remington Arms, the manufacturer of the gun used. And the Supreme Court is letting the action go forward despite a federal statute granting immunity if a gun is used in a crime. Welcome now my colleague June Grasso and Timothy Litton. He's professor of law at Georgia State University. So, Professor, thank you so much for joining us. Explain about this law giving, on its face at least, immunity.
Sure. In 2005, Congress passed a law granting immunity to the sellers of firearms, that's both manufacturers and retail sellers, immunity from civil lawsuits that arise out of criminal misuse of the weapon. There were a lot of lawsuits starting up in the late 1990s brought by gun violence victims against gun stores and gun manufacturers, alleging that there were irresponsible sales and marketing practices. And Congress passed a law to basically try and put an end to this kind of litigation.
Okay, so there's no question that this weapon was used in a crime. So how do they get around the statute?
Great. There are a number of important exceptions to this immunity, and the one that's in play in the Sandy Hook case is an exception that says there's no immunity if the firearm is sold in violation of a federal or state statute that's applicable to the sale or marketing of a firearm. And in the Connecticut case, the plaintiffs are claiming that the firearm was sold in violation of a state statute, the Connecticut Unfair Trade Practices Act, because of the sales practices which the plaintiffs allege are unethical. What's interesting about the case is that the Connecticut Supreme Court decided that the Connecticut Unfair Trade Practices Act is applicable to the sale or marketing of firearms, just as it's applicable to the sale or marketing of any kind of product. This is in contrast to two federal circuits, the New York courts in the Second Circuit and California courts in the Ninth Circuit, that held that applicable to the sale of a firearm means specifically applicable to firearm sales, not a general sales statute. And so the Connecticut Supreme Court actually took a somewhat unusual approach to defining the breadth of this exception to the federal immunity bill.
Professor, can we read anything from the Supreme Court not taking this case? Because there was no opinion at all.
Well, the Supreme Court denied, as you mentioned, to take the case in the first place, so there hasn't been an opinion issued. I think one thing to keep in mind about this case is that the appeal came up to the Supreme Court before there were any serious proceedings at trial. This was an interlocutory appeal, so we haven't seen any discovery or trial in the state courts, and it may be that the Supreme Court of the United States felt that it was premature to weigh in and wanted this to run its course in the state trial court system and work its way up through the state courts before the Supreme Court of the United States weighed in. So it's very possible that they'll take another look at this if it makes it through trial and all the way up through the Connecticut courts.
Do you agree with some gun advocates who say that the Supreme Court not acting on this is going to open the door to more gun litigation?
I think it definitely opens the possibility that other plaintiffs in other jurisdictions from, these sorts of events of mass shootings arising with fair amount of frequency are going to bring these sorts of lawsuits in places where there are state statutes that are applicable to the sale or marketing of the product, and there's no state immunity statute that would prevent that. So I think we're likely to see certainly more suits along these lines until this question gets settled.
Professor, it's interesting to me that this is a federal statute that turns on an interpretation of a state statute, because the exception is tied to that. This is coming up through state court. If ultimately, after a full trial, a state Supreme Court says we're applying our state law and we think it does apply, does that limit what the Supreme Court can do to second-guess them on what a state law means?
The Supreme Court of the United States cannot dictate to Connecticut Supreme Court what the scope of the Connecticut Unfair Trade Practices Act is, unless there's some constitutional violation. But essentially, in this case, the Connecticut Supreme Court gets to determine just how broad the Unfair Trade Practices Act is, and that's important in this case because the plaintiffs bringing this lawsuit were not parties to a transaction with the firearms manufacturer. They're sort of third-party victims of that transaction. And so that's a fairly broad reading of the Unfair Trade Practices Act. The Connecticut Supreme Court gets to determine what the breadth of that act is, but ultimately the U.S. Supreme Court will get to determine what the term applicable to the sale or marketing of a firearm means in the federal immunity statute, and will basically be able to determine whether or not a general Unfair Trade Practices Act falls under that exception for statutes that are applicable to the sale or marketing of a product, or whether applicable doesn't mean capable of being applied, but it means specifically aimed at the regulation of firearms.
So, Professor, as you mentioned, this is at the very initial stages of litigation. Tell us what will happen now to the case and what the plaintiffs in the case hope to get even before they go to trial.
The case is going to move on into civil discovery. That will allow the plaintiffs to essentially demand information from the manufacturer of this weapon, the manufacturer being Remington. And I think the plaintiffs are going to be looking for evidence in documents about the design and marketing and sales practices of Remington that they were engaged in some sort of unreasonable or unethical behavior with regard to the sale of this weapon, whether that means targeting certain audiences that pose an especially high risk of misuse, or being involved in designs of weapons that are aimed at certain populations that are more highly likely to misuse the weapon. I think it's most likely, given what the plaintiffs have pled so far and the way the Supreme Court of Connecticut ruled, that the real focus is going to be on the marketing materials, the extent to which the advertising and marketing was somehow aimed in a way that was likely to increase the risk of misuse of this weapon. And that's going to be what they're digging for.
And that was my question. What do they have to prove about the intent of Remington Arms? Because the statute, the federal statute, as I understand it, says you have to knowingly violate a state statute.
Well, you'd have to show that they were knowingly engaged in what might amount to unethical marketing practices that are likely to increase the risk of misuse of the weapon. So I don't know that intention is going to be the problem here. I think the primary challenges at trial are going to be, A, showing that actually the marketing practices are unethical under the Connecticut statute, and B, probably an even bigger hurdle, is to draw a causal link between the marketing practices of the company and the ultimate shooting, because of course the weapon was not purchased by the shooter. The weapon was purchased by the mother of the shooter, and Adam Lancer, who was the shooter, then stole the weapon from his mother and subsequently shot his mother before he carried out the massacre at Sandy Hook. So there are a lot of things that happened between the marketing campaign of this particular Bushmaster firearm and the actual mass murder, and that's going to be an issue at trial.
Potentially a really important distinction. Thanks very much to my colleague June Grasso and to Professor Timothy Litton of Georgia State. In the meantime, I wanted to remind you that Michael Bloomberg, owner of Bloomberg LP, the parent company of Bloomberg News, founded and helps fund Everytown for Gun Safety, a nonprofit that advocates for universal background checks and other gun violence prevention measures. Coming up, we're going to talk about that historic vote over in Hong Kong. We had a record number of people turning out, and they really handed a big victory to the pro-democracy forces. That's coming up next on Balance of Power. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, number one in professional development support, and number one in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA-SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Startups and research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology are fueling the innovation economy. And few people are better positioned to see what's on the horizon in New Jersey than physicist and state representative Andrew Zwicker.
How technology is transforming our financial sector is revolutionary, and so much of that is in New Jersey. We are innovators when it comes to agriculture, and there is opportunity now for great transformation in how are we going to grow food in an ever-growing population, and how do we turn urban centers into agricultural centers. Autonomous vehicles is another one where we have some of the world's leading experts, and how this will transform how those who are either elderly or are visually impaired or mobily impaired can start to use autonomous vehicles to transform their lives and have access to transportation they could have never had before.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu/research.
The market's in focus.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like 4 reels. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Tottenham and Edmonton from 10 p.m. on Friday the 22nd of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 25th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Bootlegs out to the left, looking to the left, firing, caught, 10, 5, touchdown!
NFL fans, the action continues this weekend on TuneIn Premium. Tonight, TuneIn has your Monday night NFL football with the Baltimore Ravens at the Los Angeles Rams. Kickoff at 8:15 p.m. Eastern.
Four-man rush, throws over the middle, caught at the goal line, touchdown!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Start hearing more of what you want.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations,
Live commercial-free news,
and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game.
Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
The swagger of a perfect dunk. The rush of a 3 made from all the way downtown. The adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane of the rim, throwing right corner 3, another one.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season, so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage.
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
Resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 podcasts, season 6. Listen now to 30 for 30 podcasts on TuneIn.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. U.S. stocks climbing to records on optimism over China trade. This update brought to you by the law offices of Deutsche Atkins PC, representing highly compensated executives with employment claims and severance issues. Call now for a free phone consultation. 800-498-0991. S&P 500 index up 19, a gain of 0.6%. NASDAQ up 102 points, up 1.2%. Dow Industrials up 134. The Dow now at 28,010, up by 0.5%. 10-year up 3/32, yield 1.75%. Gold down 0.3%, 14.56 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude up 0.2%, 57.86 a barrel. Again, recapping, equities higher, NASDAQ up 1.2%, S&P up 0.6, Dow higher by 0.5%. Balance of power continues, and once again, here is David Weston.
Thank you very much, Charlie Pellet. Live from the Interactive Brokerage Studios, this is David Weston, and this is Balance of Power. There was a record turnout for local district elections in Hong Kong over the weekend, and pro-democracy candidates scored an overwhelming victory. Welcome now, David Schulman. He is Senior Advisor at the International Republican Institute. Before his work with the IRI, Dr. Schulman was Deputy National Intelligence Officer for East Asia on the National Intelligence Council. So, Doctor, thank you so much for being with us. First of all, give us your top-line assessment. What did that election mean?
Well, thanks for having me. These elections are usually a fairly low-key event. They're pretty much community representatives. But in this instance, this was being watched as more or less a referendum on the pro-democracy protests, and therefore took outside significance. And as you said, we had a landslide victory for the pro-democracy candidates, winning 17 of the 18 district councils, all of which were previously held by the pro-Beijing parties. And so, there was definitely an expectation from the Hong Kong government and the Chinese leadership in Beijing that there was going to be a demonstration here that there really was a quote-unquote silent majority of Hong Kongers out there who were opposed to protests. They were going to come out and they were going to demonstrate that in these elections. Well, it didn't quite work out that way. And in fact, you had official Chinese media covering these elections up until a certain point when they realized it was going in the wrong direction, and then they pulled back from covering it so extensively. It really showed the deep support in Hong Kong for the pro-democracy protesters, and it put the lie to the Chinese Communist Party's propaganda line that these protests are externally manufactured and that there's not really deep support. In fact, the people had an opportunity to go to the polls. Really the first time that they've been able to do that and express themselves at the ballot box since the government response to the protests has been in full effect since June, and they had their voice heard.
And if someone were looking for people who really objected to the protests, they can't claim they stayed home because it was a record turnout, as I understand it.
Absolutely. It was a record turnout. I believe it was over 70%. These elections are held every 3 years, and I think this outcome was certainly not something that the official government minders expected. There's, I did say, it's kind of a community representative type of election, and it is, but there's also a certain level of importance to this in the sense that the councillors also do get to choose around 10% of their number to choose on this larger member committee that eventually selects Hong Kong's chief executive when that election comes around again in 2022. But in the meantime, I think Carrie Lam, the chief executive Carrie Lam, and the Beijing government now have to reconsider, well, if this, what we thought was going to happen did not happen, how are we going to respond to these results? And Carrie Lam, in her initial reaction, has said that she was going to, I think, humbly consider how to respond. But I think it puts them in a bit of a difficult place because thus far they had hoped that they were not going to have to answer the five main demands of the Hong Kong protesters, and they were going to be able to let this play out because the violence was going to turn off so many of the quote-unquote silent majority, and that is not what's happened.
At the same time, could it take some of the heat out of the demonstrations themselves? Because it suggests to people who are pro-democracy in Hong Kong there are other ways of expressing their views. Here they've gotten a chance with universal suffrage, as I understand it, to express their views so they don't have to take to the streets.
Well, I think, as I said, that would be true if these elections were for positions that actually could affect change in terms of really giving them a voice in terms of the larger, more important issues around autonomy, around being able to have accountability at the higher levels of government in order and be able to have, for instance, judicial independence. All these issues around one country, two systems, which have been squeezed by the Chinese central government. And so I don't see that happening just because these elections, even though they're important symbolically, and there's some political importance, as I mentioned, around the central executive election, ultimately they're more symbolic than anything else, and I think people will still want to demand those main things that will ensure that Hong Kongers really have a voice in their government and can represent themselves.
When you talk about accountability, I'm reminded of what I understand to be one of the demands from the pro-democracy movement, which is there be an independent review of what gave rise to the demonstrations, and for that matter, that extradition law that was so ill-fated. Does this increase the chances that actually Carrie Lam might go along with an outside investigation?
It's hard to say. I think that there's a chance that they will try to take actions that further mollify the protesters around some of those demands, especially around this investigation. Whether there will be, action taken by Carrie Lam and by her minders in Beijing that actually address what caused the protests in June to begin with, not just around extradition, but around the broader issues of China's crackdown on Hong Kong's autonomy. I think that's probably unlikely, at least in terms of them coming to a meeting point in terms of what would be a truly legitimate, objective review of what caused the problem in the first place.
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill, both Republicans and Democrats, have united in passing legislation that right now is sitting on President Trump's desk. They would have, for example, annual review of Hong Kong's trading status. Is that role of the United States helping, hurting, or just not making a difference right now?
I think it absolutely helps in the sense that this Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act you mentioned, it not only requires the State Department to conduct a review no less than annually of Hong Kong's autonomy and then determine whether or not Hong Kong continues to warrant a favored trading status. It also authorizes sanctions on Chinese and Hong Kong officials involved in human rights abuses. And this type of external support, I think, for the protesters is really significant. It does not in any way, I think, undermine their position. If anything, it gives them the sense that the United States has their back. I think the other question that often comes up around these sorts of things is, can we stand up for our values in such a way while at the same time defending our interests regarding, say, economic topics such as the trade war? And I think that's a misnomer. I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can stand up with the people of Hong Kong and stand up for our trade and economic interests. And there's really no sign that I've seen that the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese leadership are linking these two issues in a way that's really going to undermine a deal.
But is President Trump, this is what President Trump recently had to say on Fox and Friends over on Fox News.
We have to stand with Hong Kong, but I'm also standing with President Xi. He's a friend of mine. He's an incredible guy. We have to stand, but I'd like to see them work it out, okay?
So when Beijing hears that, what do they hear? What do they interpret that as saying?
I think they probably interpret that as saying that there may not be a choice, that the president does view these issues as potentially linked. And I think, the Chinese themselves are not, as I said, going out there to link these issues. For the Chinese, they do want to come to a deal on trade. It's in their interest. Their economy is growing slower than it has in nearly 30 years. And so the trade war is part of that. They want to get to that place. And so, I really don't think that we need to be the ones making this linkage. I don't think it serves our interests. And I think, from the Chinese perspective, there's also the fact that in this act, there is not a requirement that we scupper a deal or that we take away that special status. It's going to be subject to an executive order every year.
Okay, many thanks to David Schulman of the International Republican Institute. And now it's time to turn to Jason Kelly and Bloomberg Business Week. What do you got coming up, Jason?
We got a lot of deal talk coming up.
Oh, you think?
David,
you think?
A little bit.
Are there some deals getting done?
Chuck Schwab doing a deal, Tiffany getting bought out. I mean, there's a lot going on. We're going to talk about sports betting on Wall Street, and we're going to have the Rockettes coming by.
Oh, boy, then I'll stay for that. Okay, many thanks. That's Jason Kelly, Bloomberg Business Week, coming up on Bloomberg Radio.
They like new development.
At Lidl, we're big on all those Christmas parties. The season to be jolly. Try our Party Time Indian snack selection for only $2.99. And our party time mac and cheese bites for just $1.19. Big on a Christmas you can believe it. Now that's big on quality and always little on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes an eye.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like for reals. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
This year, make Christmas shopping a pleasure. Come to Bicester Village, with over 160 beautiful boutiques set in a fairy tale Cotswolds Christmas garden, glittering by day and magically illuminated by night. After a day's hard work finding the perfect gifts, reward yourself with festive menus and cocktails at Farm Shop Restaurant and Cafe by Soho House & Co. or a delicious dinner at Cafe Wolseley. Bicester Village, the perfect place for Christmas shopping.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Tottenham and Edmonton from 10 p.m. on Friday the 22nd of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 25th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Hey, turn it down. Now play the big hit. That's better. Get our lowest ever price on these Bose QC35 wireless headphones. With noise cancellation and voice control in the Black Tag event at Curry's PC World. Or get £50 off Bose SoundLink on-ear wireless headphones. Either way, you get 6 months free Spotify in the Black Tag event at Curry's PC World. T's and C's apply.
Looking for a great phone to take brilliant photos, like an incredible iPhone 7 with a 12-megapixel camera? Then look no further than Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. You'll find an iPhone 7 for just $14.49 a month, our lowest ever price. Be quick, this deal ends Sunday, 1st of December. Tesco Mobile, every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products in promotion. Was £19.75, now £14.49. Offer ends 1st of December. 36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage agreement, subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Maybe this is fundamentally a different economy at this point, given globalization, given technology changes.
Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine.
The thing with criticizing how everything's going to work out at Tesla, somehow Elon Musk makes it work.
Plus, global business, finance, and tech news as it happens.
I still think technology is going to be the winning sector for the year.
I think we've discounted all of the good news that anybody can think of.
Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Welcome to Bloomberg Business Week. It is Monday, November 25th, 2019. Carol Masser, along with my co-host Jason Kelly. Jason, you've got stocks climbing to records.
Well, I feel like investment bankers are walking around with a little bit of a spring in their step today. Those bonuses looking a little bit better and a little bit tired, but happy that deals are getting done, and big ones. I mean, deals you're very familiar with, having talked to the CEO of Tiffany. We caught up with Chuck Schwab as well. Right. So these are defining deals for 2019 in a lot of ways.
No doubt about it. We're going to talk about that over the next few hours. Right now, though, you need to get a Bloomberg Business Flash from Charlie Pelling.
All right. I think happy Monday to everybody. Let's begin with some of those numbers. You guys mentioned Tiffany surging 6.3%. We have got Teva up 4.5%, eBay up 2.3%, and of course, Schwab and Ameritrade Schwab shares adding on to recent gains up 1.2%, Ameritrade up by 6.3%. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing. S&P up 18, a gain of 0.6%, 3129. NASDAQ up 101 points, up 1.2%. The Dow climbing 135, up 0.5. 10-year up 3/32 with a yield of 1.76%. Gold retreating 0.4%, 14.56 the ounce. And crude oil, West Texas Intermediate up 0.2%, 57.86 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks a lot. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly and Carol Massar here with you on a Monday afternoon. A short week in many ways because of the Thanksgiving holiday, but it's going to be a busy one. And as we get into, Thanksgiving football, bowl season, maybe talk a little bit about sports betting on Wall Street.
On Wall Street. Exactly.
On Wall Street.
Let's push the button. So Wall Street rolling the dice, kind of thinking about getting into sports gambling. We talked about remember we talked with Adina Friedman about what they're doing, and we're going to get an update on what some other folks are thinking about doing when it comes to that. Hey, don't forget HPE earnings also after the closing bell. They did pre-announce about 1 month ago, but we'll see what else they have to say about how the business looks.
And also stopping by later, it is that time of year, the Rockettes. Just a couple of
Jason's
Rockettes.
Been counting down the days. I'm just going to tell you.
It was quite an initiation when I joined the show last year when some Rockettes rock up on, winter afternoon, and here they're back. Yeah. The new show. It's a big show.
It's a big show. It's kind of a official, unofficial kickoff to the holiday season. Anyway, we got a lot going on over the next 3 hours. Let's set the Business Week agenda, and let's do that with our team in place. And, of course, we've got Joe Weisenthal, markets editor of Bloomberg News. He's also co-host of What'd You Miss. That's coming your way at 4 p.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg Television. Dave Wilson's in the house, stocks editor at Bloomberg News. Both of them in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Wow, lots of deals. Joe, what's the one thing you think everybody needs to know about today?
There are a lot of deals, but stocks just going up. To me, keep it simple. It's you can overcomplicate things, but the one thing I see is a lot of green up arrows on stock markets around the world. No slowing that train down. Obviously, deal mania, that might help a little bit. I almost said something about trade, but who knows about that?
Well, I feel like when I saw the trade stories and specifically talking about IP, intellectual property, I mean, that's been one of the trickier issues. So if there is something...
You believe it? No, I mean,
Actually, do you want to know something? I feel incredibly managed, and part of me being kind of a cynic almost feels like, I wonder if this has been the game plan. Let's go back and forth a million times, get everybody exhausted, so that even if we get something tiny done, they'll all be happy.
It could be, but there you go. Stocks keep going up.
What? You're looking at me like I'm crazy.
I'm saying that if there's one thing you don't like to be, it's managed.
No, I don't.
You do not react well to being managed. Right?
True.
It's fair.
But come on, don't. Okay.
Totally.
Fair. Yeah, right. I was thinking about it this morning, and I just thought, I do wonder, conspiracy theorist or whatever, how much of this was a game plan? Let's go back and forth. So let's make it look like we both are really tough when it comes to trade and what we want to get. And then everybody just gets so exhausted that even if we give them a little morsel, that everybody's going to think it's a win. I don't know.
But, Dave, markets are largely based on sentiment, right?
Yeah, they are in large measure. And where you're seeing the sentiment show up in a positive way in some of these beaten down retail stocks. Now, here we are, Black Friday coming up this week. So the holiday shopping season really begins in earnest. And you look at what's doing well today. You see L Brands. Talk about a company that's had its issues, especially with Victoria's Secret. You see Capri Holdings, the owner of Michael Kors. You see Kohl's, which has certainly had its issues over time. And, you've got Dollar Tree higher as well, and their earnings are coming out tomorrow, actually. So we'll get an idea of how that segment of retailing is doing. So, put it all together. Even the Gap is up. Not a whole lot. I mean, 1.2%, basically, kind of keeping pace with what we're seeing in stocks, but ahead of the S&P 500 at least. So, it's interesting to see that pop up on a day where you're seeing some broad-based strength in stocks here.
All right, what's the one thing you're looking at, Carol Massar?
That's a good question. I mean, I really do. I was kind of blown away by the deal flow. And I just think, I always wonder whether this is just, the end of the cycle and folks looking to get deals done. But I don't feel that way. And I just think this bigger is better. Whether it's luxury retail or luxury in general being put under one umbrella, you get some synergies as a result. I feel like we get the online brokerage story, right, in terms of bigger is better. Yeah. And it really puts those who are smaller at a disadvantage, I think, going forward. And I just think people are also looking how do you move the needle on things that maybe you've squeezed everything you can in terms of cutting costs. So now you go to the next level.
All right. What's your big Thanksgiving plan, Joe? Are you cooking?
Wow, I didn't expect that. I wasn't ready.
I might smoke a turkey, or I might just...
Checks out.
I haven't decided whether I'm going to smoke a turkey or just lie on my couch and let a turkey roast in the oven. Because one is very, like, you have to have a monitor the temperature.
My dad smokes turkeys, and there's a lot going on.
The other one is, like, very lazy. So it kind of depends on how I'm, like, feeling Wednesday, whether I'm really exhausted.
Will the markets help determine that?
Yes. If we hit new highs tomorrow and Wednesday, I'll be in a really energized mood, then I'll smoke one.
I just love that you're doing it.
I would smoke
That's refreshing.
But wait, if it's the roast thing, then it's like, I could do that. Yeah.
But I like that, like the smoked turkey indicator.
Anyone can do it.
No, it's like, you just put that in.
Yeah.
You just put it in, add some tinfoil, some potatoes, carrots, and Brussels sprouts. Let the turkey fat drip onto it. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's
Dave, turkey plans?
I'll let my wife worry about that.
All right. There you go.
We're so old-fashioned here. So
not in my house. My husband does all the cooking.
Oh, that's cool.
So we're not old-fashioned here.
But you're roasting a turkey. You're not smoking
it. Yeah, he's roasting. We've done the fryer out in the back. We've done a lot of different versions.
Do you use a big green egg for smoking the turkey?
I will.
Yeah. That's a nice turkey.
So Jason Kelly.
Maybe I should just do it. I don't know. I'm talking about it so much. I think I'm talking myself.
I think you're talking yourself into it. Also, I do think that probably the markets are going to hit record highs. So I think you're going to be in that. I'm just saying.
I'll be compelled.
It's the smoked turkey the Weisenthal smoked turkey indicator.
Did you guys see our chart on the terminal of turkey prices?
No.
We have so I didn't know. There's a great turkey chart on the terminal of USDA whole frozen turkey prices. They always peak in October and fall for the first few weeks of November.
There you go. Yeah. Makes sense.
Kind of makes sense.
Oh, I did like an NI turkey, thinking we might have a turkey function, but of course that's turkey that
goes. That's about weapons and AIDS.
That's exactly what came up.
There's a country.
No, I know that.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of been in the news.
Yeah, it's been a little bit in the news. But anyway, but we're all a little Thanksgiving focused.
A turkey is working on Eurobonds. Is that about Thanksgiving?
Oh, my God.
All right, Joe Weisenthal, big green egg aficionado, markets editor for Bloomberg, co-host of What'd You Miss? Dave Wilson, stocks editor for Bloomberg. See you later on. Let's do the Bloomberg Markets Bite of the Day. Carol, it's one number that tells us a lot. It is Thanksgiving focus. $48.91.
Yep, the price of a Thanksgiving meal for 10 people hardly budged over the past year, costing an average of $48.91 for 2019. This is according to the American Farm Bureau's Federation's 34th annual survey of Thanksgiving Day dinner parties. That's only a penny more than last year, and it's based on average costs collected by 250 volunteer shoppers who check the prices at grocery stores in 38 states, and it includes turkey stuffing, sweet potatoes, rolls with butter, peas, cranberries, and a veggie tray, as well as pumpkin pie with whipped cream and coffee for dessert.
And a partridge in a pear tree. Bob Moon, World and National Headlines. How are you?
We've got a story about turkeys coming up. Stay with us. A special honor today for the U.S. military dog that was said to have played a key role in chasing down Islamic State leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi before the extremist blew himself up. Trump says the dog, named Conan, deserves high praise.
It was a flawless attack. And al-Baghdadi is gone, but that was a flawless attack, and I just met quite a few of them. And we just gave Conan a medal and a plaque. And it's really, and I actually think Conan knew exactly what was going on.
Conan was slightly injured chasing down al-Baghdadi, but has since recovered and returned to active duty. Benjamin Netanyahu can keep serving. Israel's attorney general says the country's prime minister is not required to leave office following his indictment on corruption charges, including fraud, breach of trust, and bribery. 2 turkeys that will be arriving at the White House this week are getting ready for their close-ups. They've been named Bread and Butter and come from a small family farm in eastern North Carolina. Tomorrow, they'll be a part of the traditional White House turkey pardoning ceremony. Willie Jackson, the Butterball turkey farmer who was tasked with raising the White House turkeys 9 months ago, says he's got his birds media trained.
They got ready this year by getting used to camera, lights, dealing with all you people. They also listen to music. They really like classic rock.
Can't vouch for that, but there's definitely an element of fake news here. The Constitution does not really give a president explicit authority to pardon turkeys. Global news 24 hours a day, on air, and at TikTok, on Twitter. I'm Bob Moon.
You
don't usually find the titans of finance, business, and politics sitting around together.
There's been this transfer of royal power and royal prerogative.
But amazingly, they're nearly all here every weekday.
Let's talk about their data. What are you looking for?
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow.
So where does the circuit breaker come from?
Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern.
He's got to respond, doesn't he?
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Melissa from Michigan. I work an extra part-time job serving lunch at my child's school, but I still can't afford to put food on our table.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
My mother was always very active and independent, and she was familiar with her neighborhood. But one day, she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. She wasn't even really sure where she was at.
It's important for you to talk to someone about it. I felt so much better after my son told me, Mom, we'll figure it out.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise.
At Lidl, we're big on all those Christmas parties. The season to be jolly. Try our Party Time Indian snack selection for only $2.99. And our Party Time mac and cheese bites for just $1.19. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes an eye.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like for reals. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
This year, make Christmas shopping a pleasure. Come to Bicester Village with over 160 beautiful boutiques set in a fairy tale Cotswolds Christmas garden, glittering by day and magically illuminated by night. After a day's hard work finding the perfect gifts, reward yourself with festive menus and cocktails at Farm Shop Restaurant and Cafe by Soho House & Co. or a delicious dinner at Cafe Wolseley. Bicester Village, the perfect place for Christmas shopping.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A6 Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Tottenham and Edmonton from 10 p.m. on Friday the 22nd of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 25th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Looking for a great phone to take brilliant photos, like an incredible iPhone 7 with a 12-megapixel camera? Then look no further than Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. You'll find an iPhone 7 for just $14.49 a month, our lowest ever price. Be quick, this deal ends Sunday, 1st of December. Tesco Mobile, every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products in promotion was £19.75, now £14.49. Offer ends 1st of December. 36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage agreement, subject to status, phase policy applies. See TescoMobile.com/terms.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down. Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Drive into the in-laws' house for Thanksgiving? Having a long airport layover on your way home? Or maybe you're camping out on Black Friday in quest of the deal of the season. Whatever the case, ease the pain and make it a long weekend to remember with TuneIn. Featuring nonstop music, binge-worthy podcasts, 24-hour news, and live NFL, NHL, and NBA games. At home or on the move, soundtrack your Thanksgiving with TuneIn.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage.
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
Resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 Podcasts, Season 6. Listen in favorite 30 for 30 podcasts on TuneIn.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. U.S. stocks trading at records on optimism over China trade relations, along with a fresh wave of merger and acquisition activity. We'll have more on M&A coming up for you in just a moment. Right now, the S&P up 19 at 3130. That's a gain of 0.6%. Dow higher by 144 points, up 0.5. NASDAQ up 104, a gain of 1.2%. 10 years up 230 seconds, yield 1.76%. Gold down 0.4%, 14.56 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude up 0.5%, 58.06 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Got it. Thank you so much, Charlie Pellet. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Massar, along with Jason Kelly, and we are Bloomberg Radio.
Manic indeed, a merger Monday, some might say, many would say, because the amount of deals, the size of deals getting done, really ramping up here toward the end of the year. Let's break the deals down, figure out what it means for the broader market. Ed Hammond is here, deals expert.
Did you get any sleep this weekend?
It was a busy weekend, but the good news is it will probably be a slightly less busy Thanksgiving.
Right. And so neither of these, the sort of big deals that we're talking about, the Schwab TD Ameritrade or the LVMH Tiffany, not big shockers in a lot of ways. You guys have done some great reporting on both. What do you take away from them, though, now that you've had a chance to sort of synthesize it, listen to how they're framing them, et cetera?
Well, they're very different kinds of deals. I mean, let's start with the Schwab deal. That's a deal that's happening because of really, ongoing headwinds that industry is facing. Obviously, the zero fees is a problem if you're a company like TD Ameritrade and you're trying to grow. So you see those deals happening because of the pressure. Something like LVMH Tiffany, the entirely opposite reason. Tiffany's is a great company. As we know, it's one of the only sort of real luxury brands in the US, at least as far as Europeans are concerned. LVMH have looked at it a number of times over the years. They've always thought of it as it's not a must-have, it's a like-to-have, but now they're a $206 billion market cap company. Guess what? You can have a like-to-have company that's close to $20 billion.
Yeah.
All right, so there's that going on. And I do wonder, do you guys then start to think about, okay, who's next? And here we had conversations last week about this, that you really will be at a disadvantage if you're a smaller player in this space now.
Yeah, I think that's right. And look, smaller player is obviously relative because everyone now is so much smaller than LVMH, both in terms of the pure scale of the company, but also just the number of big brands it has under that umbrella. So I think the likes of Richemont are going to be looking at this and they're probably quite worried. I mean, what does it mean for them? What does it mean for their ability to compete globally with LVMH? And is this something they can go and acquire? There was always speculation that they maybe would show up in this process and try and outbid. as far as we know, that didn't happen. They were never anywhere around it. I'm sure Tiffany's in, some capacity reached out to them and tried to see if there was potential interest there, but it doesn't sound like those conversations did go anywhere.
Ed, what does it mean? And I know Tiffany is certainly a global brand, and increasingly a market like Asia is really, really important to them. But when the Tiffany CEO was here at the Year Ahead luxury event, somebody came up to me afterwards and said, I do wonder what, like an iconic American brand, though, at its heart, what does it mean now that it's part of really a European conglomerate?
Well, I think it is an iconic American brand, and in a way, that's its great strength, right? It's when people think of Tiffany's, they think of the fabulous store on Fifth. They think of the movie. It has that sort of huge resonance. But it's a global company. The people around the world like the product. As you mentioned, Asia is obviously a huge market for them, by far their fastest growing region. And LVMH is essentially a holding company for similar global brands that maybe are based in France, based in Italy, based in other parts of the world. But they are, wherever there is affluence, wherever there is emerging wealth, that's where they do well. And that's why we're seeing all of these brands, all of the LVMH brands are doing particularly well at the moment in China and to some extent in Hong Kong, although obviously that's slightly imperiled of late.
So what does this tell us about the state of deal making here in, now late November 2019? Put it in perspective as in terms of sort of where we've been up to this point in the year and what we may see going to the end.
It's happened again. We had a lot of people writing off M&A for 2019, saying that fourth quarter was going to be a dud and we'd probably go into 2020 and nothing would happen because of the election. It's been anything but. We've had another very, very busy end to the year. No sign at all of that slowing down. Look, I think there is some argument to be made. A lot of these deals got announced this week because it's Thanksgiving. People don't want to go into the holidays with a load of stuff overhanging. But it's much, much busier now than it was a month ago. And a month ago, people were saying, the wheels have slightly come off. We saw some big deals that didn't close, some more risky things. You look at some of the rumors that are out there, Walgreens, to take private Walgreens, potentially the biggest LBO in history. We know KKR around that. There is obvious confidence both at the corporate level in the market, but also at the financing level.
Well, that's what I wonder, like what it tells us about where we are in our market or economic cycle here. Does it give you any indication? I mean, when we're seeing deals like this, what does it say?
Well, it's interesting because you can take really different or divergent views on it, I should say. Some people say, look, it shows that we're at the very end of the cycle. People are rushing to get these crazy things done before, everything freezes up and there's no opportunities. Other people say, actually, what it shows is that, yes, we have very high stock valuations, so people are using a lot of stock, but the companies themselves feel confident. They feel that, they've pulled a lot of the internal levers for growth, but it's still a good enough market to go out, execute very large transactions, even if that means taking on substantial amounts of debt.
Who's winning from the Wall Street perspective?
The boutiques did pretty well this weekend. We saw Centerview obviously were front and center on the Tiffany LVMH deal, and then Paul Taubman's firm PJT were the lead on the Schwab Ameritrade deal. So look, it's obviously always a good time for the smaller independent advisors, but I think particularly of late it seems that they are back on a run.
Those are deals that you can really hang your hat on for a year, and also presumably you know this much better than I, to go out and sort of shill your wares to others and essentially saying, look, I got these relatively complicated deals over the finish line.
I think that's right, but I do think, and this is worth noting, and as an M&A reporter is obviously great, part of the pitch of the boutiques was always that our deals don't leak because there's so few people. Well, guess what? All these deals have been leaking.
These were the leakiest deals around in a lot of ways.
Are you anticipating some more deal flow in the remaining month of the year?
Yep. As far as we can gather, everything is still sort of full steam ahead. Everyone is working very hard. It sounds like there are going to be a few more big ones between now and the end of the year.
Very cool stuff. Ed Hammond, thank you. Really appreciate it. Ed Hammond, wrapping up what has turned out to be a very busy Monday when it comes to deal flow. He is our deals reporter at Bloomberg News in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio right here in New York City.
All right, coming up, we are going to take a look at Africa, catch up with our buddy Jake Bright, some of the action that's been going on there. Such an interesting collision of capital. Speaking of deal making, China obviously very involved on that continent.
Yeah, absolutely. And then a little bit later on, we're going to talk with a pharmaceutical company. They've got a development of an oral insulin pill for type 2 diabetes. We'll get an update on where they are in that process. You are listening. What?
And do we mention the Rockettes are coming by later?
Oh, by the way, the Rockettes are coming. Looking forward to that. This is Bloomberg Business Week, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. A flurry of corporate deal-making continues to boost stocks. Charles Schwab agreed to buy TD Ameritrade. eBay agreed to sell StubHub to a Swiss company. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 131. The S&P 500 up 18. The Nasdaq Composite is up 100. French luxury goods company LVMH has reached a deal to buy Tiffany for over $16 billion. It adds another star to LVMH's portfolio that already includes Louis Vuitton, Christian Dior, and Bulgari. McDonald's has reached a $26 million settlement in a lawsuit over wages and working conditions at company-run locations in California. The settlement covers about 138,000 people. The Paris Theater, New York's last remaining single-screen cinema, has been saved by Netflix. It has signed a deal that will keep the 71-year-old theater open. It plans to use it for special events, screenings, and the theatrical release of its films. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Listen, as a hiring manager, I've got to tell you, the best job candidate isn't always the typical candidate. Sometimes they're a grad of life.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Sometimes the best candidates aren't the ones you're used to.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
At Lidl, we're big on those little reasons to be jolly. Like our delicious Favorina all-butter mini Stollen Bites for just $1.99. And 6 deluxe mince pies for just $1.35. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes an eye.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like for reals. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Tottenham and Edmonton from 10 p.m. on Friday the 22nd of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 25th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The roar of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut
The
it.
sideline, the man, Fleet for 3.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on
Search
the right.
NBA today to start listening.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Along the goal line, scores! It takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Gonna move, hit a shot, he scores!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Some days life can get in the way of catching up on the news that moves your world. TuneIn is here to help. With live 24/7 coverage from CNN wherever you go on the TuneIn app, you can always find a slice of your schedule, however long, to check in on the biggest stories of the day.
Hell hath no fury. The president's counselor went on a rampage on a taped phone call with Washington Examiner reporter.
Search CNN on TuneIn to get the live news when it matters most. Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York, Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960 to the country, Sirius XM Channel 119, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
So, Jason, I feel like we've done a lot of coverage in the magazine, taking a look at investment overall in emerging economies, but in particular in Africa and in particular Chinese investment in that country.
Yeah, this sort of confluence of capital and opportunity, I think, there in Africa is one of the really interesting stories of our time. Agreed. In many ways. We've got the expert there to break it down for us. First, let's get to Charlie Pellet. He's got an update on the trade. Hey, Charlie.
Well, hello there, Jason Kelly. We've got the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing right now. Stocks are at records on optimism over China trade relations, along with a fresh wave of mergers and acquisition activity today. Indeed, deal makers busy over the weekend. Schwab making it official. We were just talking about that company. It is buying TD Ameritrade for $26 billion. Right now, TD Ameritrade up 6.2%. Schwab up by 1.2%. The French luxury goods maker LVMH buying Tiffany for $16 billion. Right now, Tiffany shares, they are rallying by 6.3%. And eBay is selling ticket marketplace StubHub to European rival Viagogo for $4 billion in cash. eBay shares, they are up today by just about 2%. So lots of deals going on. Bloomberg's Aaron Kirchfeld is executive editor for the Global Deals team.
The reality is financing is still cheap. Equity markets are up. So if you want to do a deal, you want to do it now, because we've seen a bull run overall of M&A for the last 6 years, and nobody knows when that bubble's going to pop. So if you want to do a deal, especially if there's pressure in your sector, now's the time to pull the trigger.
Uber Technologies has lost its license in London for the second time in less than 3 years, putting one of its biggest markets outside of the U.S. at risk after the transport regulator there said Uber failed to address safety concerns. Uber shares down today by 1.4%. Rival Lyft is surging 5.9%. S&P at a record up 19, 31.29. That's a gain of 0.6%. We've got the Dow up 146, up 0.5. NASDAQ up 103, up by 1.3%. 10 years up 230 seconds, yield 1.76%. Gold down 0.4%, 14.55 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude up 0.4%, 58.02 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Century. Check this out, Jason. A third of the world's population and a greater fraction of its young people will be African. It's why many investors are eyeing the market, not just for its size and potential, but also for its growing tech ecosystem. Back with us to talk about just that is Jake Bright. He's TechCrunch contributor. He's also author of The Next Africa, an emerging continent becomes a global powerhouse. He joins us back in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Nice to be back with us.
Great to be back.
You know, we do talk a lot about investment, and we talk about specifically the raw materials or raw minerals and kind of staking your claims to what's to come from Africa. You're taking a look specifically at the tech ecosystem. Are you talking about kind of the tech community overall? I'm assuming it's a growing one in Africa.
Yeah, Africa's had a boom in tech startup growth and VC investment. The time span has really been about 5 to 7 years, so this is relatively new. It's not shaping up everywhere, but there are some tech hubs that are becoming notable. Mostly Nigeria and West Africa. These are places that are becoming centers of startup formation, of entrepreneurs going home, of VC investment. So it's Nigeria. The top hubs are Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya primarily, with some others on the side, Ethiopia, Ghana. And, you know,
what types of kind of startups? I know, I feel like the financial industry finds a different way of, tackling the emerging markets, and you can find some interesting things in that arena.
Well, the big spending's gone on in fintech and e-commerce and internet services. But what you have right now is you have these formalizing economies in these hubs. And even though fintech and e-commerce and some obvious startup sectors have gotten a lot of money, you basically have this new class of young African entrepreneurs that are descending into every possible sector you can imagine, from ride-hailing to education to multiplying, health services on mobile platforms. So it's all wide open, and every sector is open right now in Africa.
And so where does the funding come from? Where are they finding willing venture capitalists?
Well, this is what's news over the last week is that primarily a lot of funding has come from European and U.S. investors with some African angels. But over the last quarter, I've tracked this, China has come in to invest nearly $250 million in VC in African fintech, almost all entirely in companies that are based in Nigeria with outward growth strategies from there. And why this is notable is that that's roughly 1/4 of all the venture capital that went to startups in 2018. And previous to this, China has had an elevated engagement with Africa, but it's been mostly related to trade and trade finance and building things and bricks and mortar stuff. We've been waiting for China to go all in on African digital in full. And these last several investment rounds in fintech kind of indicate that that's happened or happening.
Why is this? Is it of concern? Is it of interest? How would you describe it?
Well, it runs the gamut. I should say a little bit more about the rounds. So you have a group of Chinese investors who, the biggest round is just recently into Opera, the internet company. They've started to launch services startups in Nigeria. So they have a payment startup called OPay, which a group of Chinese investors, Sequoia China, Source Code Capital, invested $120 million in Opera's OPay just in this last month. And what's happening is you're seeing this start to expand into other areas. It's creating different dynamics with competition on the continent with existing players, including Opera's going to expand OPay into Kenya, which has been Africa's capital for mobile money. When it comes to what to look at here, one, there's more competition. Two, there's more investment for African startups overall.
And that all sounds good.
That all sounds good, but then it enters this complicated part of Africa's involvement in, or China's involvement in Africa, which has been somewhat controversial. To be objective, the conversation around China and Africa runs kind of the extreme would be that it's neocolonialism and that China is taking over Africa. On the positive end, Africans will often tell you that China is actually meeting us where we want to be. They're offering us money. We need infrastructure. They're building stuff. They're helping us with bridges. And a lot of people bring lecture, but they don't bring the funds.
But there is concerns about data privacy. We've just got about 25 seconds left.
And
and that's
this
concern.
Pivot to digital creates a whole new topic in China and Africa when you get to the concerns with Huawei, when you get to Chinese investors having major stakes in big consumer platforms that run a lot of data and fintech information. I think the continent's still getting its hands around that now after just grasping the amount of investment and who's doing what and where.
Well, very interesting space to watch for sure. Jake Bright, contributor to TechCrunch. He's also the author of the book, The Next Africa, An Emerging Continent Becomes a Global Powerhouse, keeping us up to date on all things happening there.
And it's stories like that remind me that we're so focused on some of those big macro stories that this is stuff that's going on and really serves and deserves some attention as well. All right, coming up, we're going to talk about a new treatment potentially for treating diabetes. We'll get to that in just a moment. First up,
let's get to Bob Moon. He's got world and national headlines. Hey, Bob.
Jason, Defense Secretary Mark Esper says President Trump gave him a direct order that a Navy SEAL accused of war crimes in Iraq be allowed to retire without losing his SEAL status. Esper told reporters at the Pentagon today that was the reason he announced Sunday evening that Chief Petty Officer Edward Gallagher would be allowed to retire with his Trident pin, retaining his status as a SEAL. House Armed Services Committee Chairman Adam Smith says just because the president can intervene in such military affairs doesn't mean he should.
You have to respect the leadership chain below you. And the president didn't do that. And I think right now, every service member has to be asking themselves, is my immediate superior, I can just go around him.
Esper fired the Navy Secretary, Richard Spencer, over the conflict with the president yesterday. Even as the impeachment proceedings move forward, the Trump administration and Democrats in Congress are cooperating, putting forth plans aimed at reducing the cost of prescription drugs. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports from the White House.
There's also a role for companies that insure their employees and often use pharmacy benefit managers, expecting the PBMs to control costs. Gerard Anderson, professor of health policy at Johns Hopkins University, said in a Bloomberg interview.
We're asking large corporations to look at what drugs they have on their list. Unnecessary, ineffective drugs, having the branded drug on the formulary because the PBM gets some money and the generic won't pay a rebate to them.
Anderson also pointed out that most new drugs result from university research, financed by federal tax dollars. At the White House, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air, and at TikTok, on Twitter. I'm Bob Moon.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know, with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like for reals. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
This year, make Christmas shopping a pleasure. Come to Bicester Village, with over 160 beautiful boutiques set in a fairy tale Cotswolds Christmas garden, glittering by day and magically illuminated by night. After a